Hello, so good to be with you. I'm going to jump back in. We've been looking at chapter 9 of Ecclesiastes last week, and we're going to conclude it this week. And I want to try to put it all together. We've been talking a lot of parts of life, and I want to couch this in the terms of just advice for life. And again, just think about, we're getting this advice from a book written thousands of years ago, but there's some great insights that are very relevant for us today. So, I want to talk about some things that were in the first part to build upon as we go into the second part. And remember that Solomon here was a scientist. He's examining it all. He's laying things out. And one of the things he concludes is that all of our deeds, whatever they may be, are all in the hand of God. Whatever we do, there's so much we can do, but it's all ultimately in God's control. And that can give us an assurance, it can give us a rest, it can give us a comfort. But at times, it can also be unsettling because I know for myself, I battle for that control. I want to control everything, really. I'm honest with myself. So I have to somewhat give up that control. And we'll be talking more about that aspect today. Another hard truth, but something we need to be aware of, is that for each and every one of us, as we look at mankind, we think about ourselves. If we're honest, there's a lot of evil. There can be even madness. It can dwell in our hearts. It's something we have to battle. However, there is also this great, hopeful message that as long as we're alive, choices lay before us. There's a chance to turn from our evil. There's a chance to turn towards the right ways, to turn towards God. There's also the comfort of just enjoying things in life. That we can enjoy our bread. We can enjoy the provisions that we've been given. But we're also told, thinking about this idea of evil, about we're not going to be perfect in this way, but with all that lies within us, we try to keep our garments white, try to keep them unstained from the things of this world. But another provision he gives us is, besides our daily bread and our provision of food and shelter and all that we have, it's the family we have. Or those that have been married, the spouse that they have, the parents that we have, the siblings, the children, the relationships we have are truly things to enjoy and cherish and be thankful for. And then what he concluded the first half in verse 10 with is this idea of not only are we given the provision of food and family, but of talents. And in our vapor, in our vanity of life, we have limited time, and we should use our talents to the best of our ability. And to do it, this time will quickly go. There's a passage there. We got to do our labor while it's day, because before we know it, it'll be night. So we put our hand to the plow. We do what we can. We work hard. While it is day, we do everything that our hand has found, and we do it to the best of our ability. It's part of being a good steward of our time and our resources and our provisions that we have. There's a lot to think about there. I throw those things out. There's a lot to think about, but we're going to keep going. We're going to build upon this. So we're going to continue some thoughts, picking up now with verse 11. Now, earlier I was talking about this idea of control, and again, it's something I absolutely know. I struggle with wanting to be in control. I like feeling like I have control over my life. Well, there's going to be some balance in this. It says in verse 11, again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift. Now, I want you to think about some of these sayings. Now, what do you think? Who do you think is going to run the race? The swift. But it says the race is not to the swift. Who's going to win the battle? You'd say, well, the strong is going to win the battle. Well, no, maybe not the strong. Or bread to the wise, or riches to the intelligent, or favor to those with knowledge. It's kind of like a series of contradictions here. But he goes on and says, but time and chance happen to them all. For man does not know his time. Like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. Can a fish, they might say, I'm going to be careful. But the net catches them. The birds are going to watch out, but the snare catches them. Well, we need to think about what is this saying and what it's not saying. I think I'm going to start off by saying what it's not saying. What it's not saying, it's not saying don't train for a race. It's not saying that don't try to be strong, or don't try to be wise, or don't try to be intelligent, or obtain knowledge. It could lead you to kind of this hopeless giving up situation. It's not saying that. But what it is saying is you can train hard and you can be swift and you can still not complete the race. You could fall. You could look at yourself and say, look how strong I am, but you could still fall in the battle. You could say how wise and how much knowledge you have, and still make a mistake. You could still be caught in a net, a snare. I wanted to think about some ways to think about this. Okay, a person can train hard physically for a race. They might even in trials, etc., have the fastest time. They're the favorite. But I was even looking at some examples of people in the Olympics who led a race and then something happened and they just lost their balance and they fell. They might have been technically the fastest, but they didn't win the race. Of course, a great example I thought of with the battle and the strong is David and Goliath. Goliath was so much bigger, so much stronger. What a beautiful passage. On the outside, a person, an army, whatever could appear to be a lot stronger, but sometimes they fall. You could read that. We know the story, probably know the story. You can read through that account yourself in 1 Samuel 17. And then I thought, an example came to me this week. I heard this story, and I thought about it in context of this passage. It's about the governor of Texas. His name is Greg Abbott. Now, he's in a wheelchair today. This is a picture of him today. But he was a runner in life. He was training. And in the 1980s, when he was out on a run, he was just on a run. He was jogging. He was training. And at that exact instant, something fell upon him. Our pastor says when they least expected, a fish was caught in a net. Or birds caught in a snare. You don't know when it can suddenly fall on you. Literally, a tree fell on him. He was training, but he couldn't control the tree. Somebody's in life, and they get cancer. They couldn't control it. Things happen. What's it not saying? It's not saying to give up. It's not saying not to train. It's not to say not be strong, but you know what? There are things that happen beyond our control at times. That's part of life, as it was for Solomon and for us. So, should we just give up? No. There's got to be balance in all this. And so he says there's still the importance of wisdom. There's still the importance that there are things we can do. So he says, I've seen this example of wisdom under the sun, and it seemed great to me. That's a pretty big thing for Solomon to say. There was a little city with few men, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works. So this is the strong. They're obviously going to win. Yet there is found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered the poor man. But I say wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. So there's a bit of an example there that you didn't really appreciate it. But he's saying, look, you have wisdom, a lot can be accomplished. Now Solomon treasured wisdom. And I thought of something to go along with this passage. He said, though his wisdom wasn't heard. But I thought of this passage from Malachi 3:16. At times people may not always see or give the credit, but God does. It says, those who feared the Lord spoke to one another, and the Lord listened. And he heard them, and a book of remembrance was written before him for those who fear the Lord and meditate on his name. And that's a wise thing. Maybe people around you would recognize it, or maybe, like in this illustration, your wisdom won't be valued, or your fear of the Lord won't be heard by those around you. But be encouraged that God has a book of remembrance. Now, some final thoughts here in this passage. The words the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler amongst fools. That's interesting. If you look at Proverbs, there's a lot about people with loud talk, being really loud in their arguments. There's something about wise, quiet, piercing words. And he says wisdom is better than weapons of war, as he was just illustrating. But there's also in this a warning that one sinner can destroy much good. I think of Galatians, a little leaven can ruin the whole lump. For some of you, maybe this passage isn't familiar to that many. But if you go back and you study a passage from Joshua, chapter 7, when finally the people of God are being delivered, there was a sin in the camp. And they were told not to take this certain gold. They were not to take it. God commanded them not to. But Achan couldn't help himself. He had to take it, and he brought problems on the whole army, on the whole camp. One person, son, in a family, a father, a mother, someone in that family can do something. And they can cause a lot of problems. A person in a company can do that. So we need to be reminded of that. So there's a lot going on in this chapter. I'm going to kind of try to put it all together here at the end. Just some final thoughts. You think about it yourself. We want everything's in the hand of God. So again, that's a warning about who's in control, but it's also, I hope, a great comfort. As the great children's song says, he's got the whole world in his hands, and that's true. So I hope you do also find a lot of comfort in that. But there's also this need for balance. We don't just give up and say, well, it's all in the hands of God. There's nothing I can do. No, God, we still have a part to play. We're still told to work while it's still light. We also are told, you know what? I think of, we're entering a season of Lent and people are giving things up, and there's times for fasting and giving things up. But there's also the balance at times of enjoying the things of life. In balance. We don't get too into an extreme one way or the other, but God gives us good food. He gives us good things to enjoy. He gives us provision. He gives us food. He gives us our family. We don't make these our God. We keep them in balance, but they can be good things to enjoy. And that's why we also, while we know that things are in God's hands, we also have a responsibility and a stewardship to strive and to work while it is day. Control what we can. Do our best. But also know there are things out of our control. We don't know when that thing can suddenly fall upon us. I certainly don't want to be caught in a net. I don't want that tree to fall upon me. But there are things out of my control. But in that, I don't just give up. I don't say, well, it's hopeless. It's all in God's hands. I trust that it is. But I also know that He gives me an opportunity. I should at times train hard and work hard and acquire knowledge and do even as I'm doing now. I try to share His Word. I try to share the message. I try to encourage people, and you should as well. And also to realize wisdom's not perfect, that I am going to be frail in my wisdom, but there's value in wisdom. He illustrates this. And there's value in what's right. And at times you say, well, I don't even know if I'm understood. I don't know if everybody sees it. I don't know if I'm going to be remembered, but be encouraged by that passage. I also shared in Malachi, God has a book of remembrance. And we're even told that those that turn people to righteousness will shine as the stars forever and ever. So we can have comfort and be encouraged and hope in that. We also need to understand, lest we also give up, that even a little so-called sin, a little leaven, can cause great damage. There's consequences to our actions. So, hey, I think these fruits of wisdom that Solomon shared with us in this passage, they're very relevant for us today. I hope they will give you some things to think about and apply to your life.